And a very good Thursday afternoon, 4 o'clock Eastern Time, live from Charlotte, North Carolina on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network. You're now listening to the Sports Wagering Zone. You might also be podcasting over there at Apple Podcasts, listening to us on iHeartRadio or Spotify or Amazon. We're on most of the major platforms there as well. So welcome to the show and thank you very much for listening. It's happy Major League Baseball opening day of baseball. Spring is in the air. The air's changing, getting warmer, getting nice. Ooh, unbelievable. The 2021 season kicks off today. There were supposed to be 15 games, but there's only going to be 13 because two of them have already been canceled. Baltimore against Boston and the Mets and Washington. Those two games have been canceled because of the coronavirus situation. They've been pushed. They're not being canceled totally. They're going to be played, but they will definitely not be played today. However, if you don't like betting on baseball, there are 7 NBA games. You got 9 NHL games on tap also. So the first thing we're going to do is going to take a look at 2 games that are on tap for this afternoon. I want to get into them real quick because the airtime is somewhere around 4:10, 4:15 Eastern time. So want to get it on record as to who the pros are looking at in these 2 particular games, because we're going to kind of look at them the same way we did during the NFL season and looking at the games. Also, the college basketball tournament, which was quite successful so far as the pros betting and the wagering they've been doing. So we're going to tell you on record. So this way, if you have time to get in on them, you can. But it's just more to let you know who it is so you can't come back later and say, oh, yeah, you said that you won with that one, you won this one, because you already knew the results of it. So want to get you there in time for that. So to start with, around 4:10, they're both 4:10 games. Arizona Diamondbacks against the San Diego Padres. This is a National League Western showdown. It's like a David and Goliath divisional mismatch, the way I see it. The Diamondbacks finished last in the National League West last season. They went 25-35, which is a 417 number. Meanwhile, the Padres finished in second behind the Dodgers, finishing 37-23. 0.617 as far as their percentage went for last season. Now, Arizona's win total this season is 75.5. San Diego's is 94.5. Those are the season win totals that are out there right now. The Snakes will start veteran lefty Madison Bumgarner. He's 1-4, 6.48 ERA in 2020. While the Padres come back with their newly acquired ace, Yu Darvish, 8-3, 2.01 ERA. The line opened with San Diego, a -210 home favorite. The wise guys have steamed the Padres. They love the Padres, drove the line up from -210 up to -230. Now, last season, the Padres went 21-11 at home, while the D-backs went 9-21 on the road. So as far as the pros are concerned, on that first particular game, they do like the San Diego Padres. The other game at 4:10, the Texas Rangers and the Kansas City Royals. Now, this is an American League matchup. It might be getting overlooked by the public, but the pros really like this game. The Rangers finished dead last in the American League West last year. They went 22-38 for a .367 average. The Royals were only slightly better, finishing second to last in the American League Central with a 26-34 record at .433%. Now, the Rangers' win total is 67.5 this season. The Royals' win total, 74.5, which means that the odds makers, they kind of predict a better season out of Kansas City than they do out of Texas. Now, the Royals seem to have a starting pitching advantage, as the Rangers are going to start Kyle Gibson, who was 2-6 with a 5.35 ERA. The Royals will be coming out with Brad Keller. He was 5-3 with a 2.47 ERA last season. So looking at the line for today, open with Kansas City, a minus 149 home favorite. And we've seen the pro money lay the wood with the Royals, driving the line up to 160 from 149. And I've even seen it go as high as 165 at some of the shops as well. Now, the Royals were even at home last season. They were 15-15, while the Rangers were 6-24 while on the road. That was the worst road record in baseball last year. The Royals had the best spring training record in the American League, going 16-8. So in this particular game, the pros are on the Kansas City Royals. In the earlier game, it's not the earlier game, but the earlier game we talked about, they like the San Diego Padres over the Arizona Diamondbacks. Again, first pitch should be somewhere around 4:10, 4:15 in that area. We go on at 4 o'clock. Just want to make sure we have it on record as to the two teams that we're picking, regardless whether they win or lose. We'll let you know about that later on tomorrow. So also we had one more game looked at. That was the Mets against the Nationals. But of course, that game was a 7 o'clock game and has been canceled along with the game between Baltimore and Boston as well. So again, we kind of changed the format a little bit today because wanted to get this information out about the two baseball games that are starting just about in 5 or 10 minutes from now, let you know who they are in case you're interested in placing a wager. Now, we've been talking about the money line, and that's the type of betting that is primarily associated with betting baseball as opposed to a line movement like 6-point favorite, 5-point favorite, 2-point underdog, whatever. These are strictly money line totals. And when we come back from our break, we're going to take a little closer look and try to explain to you how some of that does work and how it affects you if you've never done it before. Now, if you've been kind of toying with the idea of betting baseball, this will definitely be of some help to you, try to give you an insight as to how and why the numbers, how they come up, and what they mean as it goes on through the season. So let's take our first break. And like always, like I said, we take 3 breaks during the show. Each one is of about a minute to a minute and a half duration. So keeping that in mind, we will be back into the sports wagering zone right after this. And welcome back. Welcome back to the Sports Wagering Zone. Here we go again. Baseball season opening day, April 1st, 2021. April Fool's Day, right? Okay. Well, we'll see what happens throughout the day today. So we talked about the two games on tap that are starting around a little after 4 o'clock. We'll see how they go. And of course, like we did with the NFL games, like we did with the college basketball games, we're monitoring the line movement, monitoring that movement and seeing in which direction the pros are going as far as these games are concerned. We'll keep a running total of it. We'll keep a record of it, give you an idea as to how well this little system does work, whether it works or not, how well it does. We'll tell you how it does. Again, as always, if you do have a system that you're using right now that you've used in the past, you're happy with it, by all means, don't change anything, but you might want to put a tweak in there somewhere and add into the fact that the pros are either for or against a particular game that you're betting on. So, it's up to you to decide which way to take it, keeping in mind that these are guys that do this for a living. They maintain somewhere between 58 to 62% percentage of winners. So that's not bad at all. In fact, that's pretty good, in fact. And if you can do that well, and you're doing that well now, fine, all good and well. I hope you're doing it, and I hope you're doing well. If you need some help, by all means, that's what the show's all about. We're here to try to make a better handicapper out of you. Speaking of basketball and the NCAA, the Final Four, here are the latest numbers on those games, by the way, before we go into talking about what happened yesterday as far as betting was concerned. Baylor is still a 5-point favorite. No change so far from yesterday against Houston. The over-under is at 135, and that hasn't been any change at all. Now, that's the early game. That's somewhere around 5:15, and that's going to be on CBS. And then the big game, UCLA against Gonzaga, about 8:35 or so. Once again, it's the national game, CBS Network. UCLA is a no change there. Gonzaga is a 14-point favorite. It is a slight change. It was 13.5. It was bordering on 14 yesterday, and now has definitely gotten to 14. Gonzaga being a 14-point favorite in this game, and the over-under went from 145 up to 146. So those are the latest numbers as far as the Final Four are concerned. So there's a little break in the action. Nothing's going to be happening now until Saturday, so we can kind of concentrate and keep our attention on baseball, the sport that is getting into the business as of today. But quickly taking a look at what happened yesterday over in the NBA, speaking of basketball, the favorites, as they've been doing most of the season, are ahead 7-3 straight up yesterday, but the underdogs were actually better. They were 6-4 against the spread. So the favorites, even though they went 7-3 straight up, the underdogs were ahead 6-4 against the spread. There were 3 upsets. There were the Mavericks, who were 1-point dogs against the Celtics. The T-Wolves, who were 3-point dogs against the Knicks. And the Thunder, who were 7.5-point dogs against the Raptors. Not only that, the Rockets, who were a 12.5-point dog against the Nets. The Grizzlies, who were a 6-point dog against the Jazz. And the Bulls, who were an 8.5-point dog to the Suns. Even though they did lose their games, they did cover in these 3 situations. So even though they lost, they did cover, which is the name of the game, right? Not so much important as to who won. The important thing is, did they cover or not? So the favorites still lead, but it was cut down to 346 to 343. That's just a smidgen over 50% so far in the season. And 8 games also closed as a pick'em. If you want to add up all those numbers, that's how they come up. The unders went 8-2 yesterday, but the overs still hold the lead, 352 to 48, which in itself is a little over 50% as well. So those are the stats you might want to keep in mind, might want to make notes on as far as the NBA games are concerned. Meanwhile, in the NHL, the underdogs went 3-2 with upsets by the Sabres, who were a plus 170 against the Flyers. The Kings were a plus 140 against the Golden Knights, and the Sharks were a plus 135 against the Wild. The overs went 3-1-1, but the unders still lead, 270 to 258, which is a little over 51%. In the meantime, first period overs went 4-1, but the first period unders are still ahead. They're at little over 53%. So that's a rundown as to what happened in the National Hockey League and the NBA yesterday as far as betting was concerned. So that's the topic of discussion that we have. Normally we lead with that as far as the show when it opens up, but because we have this situation in baseball, a couple of games that are about ready to start any minute now, wanted to make sure we got on record the teams that we did actually pick because of the pros and which direction they're going. So this way, whether they could both lose for all we know, but it doesn't matter. At least we're on record. Whatever it is, we'll report it to you tomorrow, along with any new games that are on tap for tomorrow. So let's take our second break. And when we come back, we're going to take a look at betting at the underdogs and betting on baseball. That's now in progress, just starting. So let's take that second break, and we'll be back right after this. And welcome back. Welcome back to the Sports Wagering Zone. I'm Chris Pardo. I'm here in Charlotte, North Carolina, coming to you live on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, also on most of your major podcast platforms as well, such as Spotify, or maybe iHeartRadio, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music. All of those podcasts and most of your other major platforms carry the Sports Wagering Zone. So welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for listening. Like we said, it's opening day in baseball. So let's talk a little bit about betting on underdogs and maybe how we bet about other things such as unders and overs and things of that nature. So here are some thoughts about it. Hopefully you can learn from it. Use it as you wish, okay? Hopefully it'll help you to become a much better handicapper if that's what you need. Because, betting on baseball, well, it's kind of different than betting on other sports. Like we said earlier, unlike football or maybe basketball, baseball is mostly a money line sport, which means that all you have to do is pick which team is going to win or lose. The bettors also have more games to choose from compared with most of the other sports, usually with about 15 games per day that are in play. And there would have been 15 today, but you had 2 cancellations because of the virus. And you have about 2,400 games throughout the season in baseball. Now, if you're new to betting on baseball, or you're looking for a kind of a refresher, a little review, shall we say, here are some easy things to remember to help you to turn a profit if you're not, or if you are turning a profit, to maybe make the profit just a little better, and a way to avoid some common mistakes that people make. One of the things you have to look about is this: avoid the big favorites. Because, we've talked about this many times. The public loves taking favorites. Hey, after all, they're supposedly the better team, and of course they're expected to win, of course, right? However, the sports books, they know that this bias is there, and you know what they do? They shade the lines toward that number, the popular team, forcing the bettors to lay even overpriced numbers. So if you're constantly laying, say, minus 200, 250 or 300, you're assuming a big risk with very little reward. So if you like the big favorites, you might be better off taking them on the spread, also known as the run line. For example, instead of betting a favorite at minus 300, that's where you lay 300 to win 100, or you lay 30 to win 10, if you want to look at it from that perspective. Okay, on the money line, you could bet the team to win by 2 or more runs on what we call the run line at minus 1.5. And of course, the money line at that particular point is minus 140. It's going to cost you $140 to win $100, but at least it's not as bad as $300. So that's the thinking there. So once again, instead of going on the money line, when you do see the favorite really blown up that high, just go to the run line. All you have to do is win by 2 or more runs because it's a minus 1.5. So it's got to get to 2 in order for you to be a winner. And it's generally going to cost you somewhere around $140 to be able to make that kind of bet. That's the VIG that is associated with that number. Also, lean on divisional underdogs. To break even betting on the spread and the over and under sports such as football and basketball, you have to win 52.38% of your plays. That's assuming that you got the standard juice of 110 to 100. Okay, now one of the advantages in baseball is that if you avoid those big favorites we just talked about, and you just start focusing on the underdogs, you can be a winner at under 50% and still turn a profit based on the plus money payouts. Think of it this way: when you're betting on the underdog, you're at plus 110. You might be at plus 130 or even plus 175. So this doesn't mean you should bet every dog. That's for one thing. The key here, you want to focus on divisional dogs because they perform a lot better than the underdogs playing out of their divisions. Now, of course, this is due primarily to the built-in familiarity that they have. Same thing as if you're watching NFL games or if you're watching college football, college basketball. You go within the conference. Those teams know each other. They play each other more often than not, okay? That holds true with baseball as well. So they know what to expect from the team. They know the managerial tendencies of the various teams they're playing in. And not only that, but they've been playing in that stadium before, so they kind of know what that's all about as well. So this helps to level that playing field, and you benefit. The benefit comes to the dog, to the underdog. Now, another thing is you want to target the dogs with high totals. Favorites with low totals and first fives, pay attention to the total, the over under, for instance. If you're getting on a dog, you want the game to have a high total of 9 or higher. And you want to know why? It's because when more runs are expected to be scored, it leads to more variance and there are much more upset opportunities, which benefits the underdog. Low totals of 8 or less are better for the favorites because of the fewer expected runs to be scored. Makes it more likely that they're going to come from the better team if that's under 8. Now, baseball has its own version of first half bets. They're called first fives, or F5 as we refer to them. Maybe you really like a starting pitching matchup, but you're kind of worried about the bullpen. The bullpen might blow the game for you. So here you could bet a team on the F5 line instead of the full game. Or maybe you like the F5 under instead of the full game under. Always know that you do have that option and you could go in either direction. And then finally, what you need to do is monitor the line movement. It's what this show is all about. We're talking about line movement, whether it's we're doing college basketball, whether we're doing NFL football, college football, NBA, whatever it is. You want to monitor the movement of the line because the way the line moves can tell you a lot about where the public is betting and where the pro money is betting. The goal here is to bet against the average bettor who bets based on gut instinct primarily. He has certain biases. So place yourself on the side of the house. And most importantly, be on the same side as the pros who have the respect of the sports books and they win more often than they lose. That is a fact. Now, you can track how a line moves from open to close. If a line is moving toward a team, that's probably a good sign that the pro money is in its favor. Now, we call a reverse line movement. We've talked about that situation. It's a great indicator of where the pros are going. This is when the betting line kind of moves away from that popular side or the favorite, if you want to call them that, and it goes towards the unpopular or over to the dogs. Steam is also important to look at. This is what Steam is all about. It's when you see a line move 20 cents or more in any one direction, that means a lot of money is coming in immediately. Big money could be coming in at that particular time to make that line move that much. Also, look out for the late moves that happen just before the game actually starts, because that's when the limits are the highest. And that's when the big moves really start coming in. Now, we've talked about limits and how they go. We've had a whole session on it a few weeks ago. We'll probably get back to talking about things like that because, there's a little more time now. We got a little break, so we have a few days where we can do a little more, educational type of stuff, trying to give you some tips and ideas on how to get ahead. If you are ahead, how to stay ahead and maybe even get further ahead. And if you're not doing so well, perhaps some of the information we give you, which is strictly an analytical situation, may be of some help to you as well. Remember, the idea is to take that emotion out of the betting situation. You become emotional, you're biased, you're going to, yes, you'll have some winners, no doubt about that, but you'll be really lucky to come to 50%. And that's already in the losing section because you got to be at 52.3. So let's take a final break. And when we come back, we'll take another look at some other interesting things as far as baseball is concerned. We're going to take a look and see how projections can give you prop bettors an edge, a slight edge, because of some of the projections that are coming out. So let's take a break. And like I said, we're in the sports wagering zone. Our breaks are about a minute duration. So we'll be back right after this message. And welcome back. You're back in the sports wagering zone. I'm Chris Pardo. I'm here in Charlotte, North Carolina, coming to you live on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, talking about baseball. It's opening day, April 1st, 2021, opening day. And like I said earlier in the day, we made two selections that are actually the selections of the pros. We're just monitoring the line movement to see which direction they're going. And it's Arizona playing San Diego. They like San Diego in that game. And the Texas Rangers against the Kansas City Royals. In that particular game, the pros like the Kansas City Royals. So let's take a look at some prop baseball bets. Like I said, baseball is back. We're going to be getting in probably and hopefully a full season of action. Like even though we had two games that were canceled today, they're still going to be played at some point in time. So we're going to get all the games in. Now there might be a little bump in the road here and there, but they're going to try to get all the games in for this season. Now, there's plenty of unknowns when you're going into this season. More than you will ever think about. Not as many as last year, but of course, you don't have a full season to use data to help you get through this coming season. So what I've done is I've gone to get some help in my projection systems from what we call the BAT and the BATX, which is betting against the spread. This will help us identify some of the best futures bets for this season. Now, the BAT utilizes advanced cybermetric methodologies like those that are used by baseball front offices to project the performance of players. The BAT X builds off the BAT, the BAT, which primarily uses traditional stats as the stuff that they put into it. Now, by incorporating StatCast data for the hitters, they can make some certain determinations. Now, the BAT or the BAT routinely tests as one of the most accurate projection systems available, and the BAT X tested as the best of the 2020 season, according to Fangraphs and a study that they provided. So we got involved with, and going to give you the information from the BAT, B-A-T. Now, the World Series futures, Philadelphia Phillies, from BetMGM. The odds on the Phillies are 35-1. Now, across most of the markets, almost all the markets, the Phillies seem to be what we call the good team that is the most undervalued going into this coming season. The National League East is going to be a tough division, but it may be for that exact reason why Philly has become something of an afterthought to the Mets and to the Braves. So even the Nationals have a higher Vegas win total and a lower World Series odds, because the Phillies, their World Series odds are around 15th at most sports books, but the BAT projects them for the 7th most wins in all of Major League Baseball. So that's a big, significant gap in the numbers. The Braves and the Mets project for more wins, so technically, Philadelphia doesn't project to make the playoffs in the most likely scenario that they have, but they do project for just 3 fewer wins, and at 35-1, that gap is easily small enough to justify the odds for a legitimate good baseball team, and that is the Philadelphia Phillies. Once again, at BetMGM, they're at 35-1. These are projections of BAT. Then you have the Milwaukee Brewers. Their odds are 50-1. The Brewers have around the 20th best odds to win the World Series this year, but the BAT projects them for the 10th most regular season wins at 85. That also happens to be the most in the National League Central. That gives them a clearer path to making the playoffs than just a talented team like the Phillies that we just got finished talking about. So Milwaukee was quite unlucky in 2020. Christian Yelich finished 2020 with a .343 WOBA. after 2 straight seasons of being at plus 400. With natural regression and the return additions of Lorenzo Cain, Jackie Bradley Jr., and Colton Wong, this offense should be much better than it was a year ago. And then you throw in the 2 ace pitchers with good depth behind them and the second best bullpen in baseball. And here you do. You have a team that should be a low-level contender. So looking at the Milwaukee Brewers at 50-1 as far as the latest odds at BetMGM. Now, as far as team totals are concerned, the Pittsburgh Pirates, their number's 58.5 at BetMGM. The BatX projection is 66.9 wins. More or less, you can look at it and say 67. So the record and the recommended bet in this situation by the BATX is over on the over of 58.5. And of course, the VIG involved is going to cost you $110 because the Pirates, they're not a good baseball team. They're certainly not the best baseball team, but they're the best bet that you can make this year. At 58.5 projected wins, Vegas is saying that not only are the Pirates the worst team in baseball, but they're the worst team in baseball by a whole lot. 5 wins worse than the next worst team. That's aggressive and maybe probably wrong. So the BAT projects Pittsburgh for 66.9 wins. That's bad, but it's 95 losses. It's bottom 3 in baseball. But something you may not know about bottom 3 is that it's not the absolute worst. Remember that. And it's certainly not the absolute worst by 5 wins. That's for sure. The Pirates were one of the unluckiest offenses in baseball last year. The only hitters who got 100-plus PA did not underperform their expected weighted on-base average, okay? Cole Tucker and Jacob Stallings. And that is surely going to impact the Vegas line. Now, I know it's not sexy to root for the Pirates, but it looks like that's where the value is. So those are a couple of situations. Again, these are projections by BAT and BATX. They're big computerized situations. They put data into it. They spit out results, and they try to be as close as possible to what the numbers are. And it's just strictly numbers because that's what it's all about. The numbers don't lie. So we'll go over those numbers once again. We'll go over those teams, the games coming up as we have some more time during the week. This way, if you're interested, kind of make a notation on it. We'll let you know exactly what the story is that we can get on it. And if you're interested, you're more than happy to take advantage of it. Maybe you're already thinking about betting the Pirates. Maybe you're a Pirates fan. This should give you a little something to think about. It looks like that number of 58.5 seems to be pretty low for an over-under situation if you want to go on the over on that particular number. Because according to the BAT, they should score 5 to 6 more wins than they have projected at Vegas. So thank you very much for listening. It's baseball opening day game with 2 games on tap. The pros like San Diego against Arizona. They like the Kansas City Royals against the Texas Rangers. So we'll see how that little system works. We'll keep an eye on it throughout the season, let you know what's going on a day-to-day basis. And this way you can make up your mind as to whether you want to follow it or bet against it. And again, we leave that up to you. So thanks again for listening. We'll be back again tomorrow, Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. We're here every Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. And of course, Saturday and Sunday, we're here at 11 a.m. Eastern Time as well. So once again, thanks again for listening. If you're going to be betting tonight, whether it's baseball, NBA, or National Hockey League, I wish you the best of luck. I hope you do okay. So I hope you have a very, very pleasant Thursday. But like I say, more importantly, I hope you have a profitable Thursday as well. So until tomorrow at 4 p.m., right here on the I-95 Sports Network, live from Charlotte. Until then, Goodbye, everybody, and have a very profitable Thursday evening. Goodbye, everybody.